Hello, good morning, dearest gentle viewers. You're most welcome to the show. You are watching Focus on Parliament here at Civic Space TV, and I am your host, Harris Ocampo. On this edition, we take a look at the Parliament's decision to extend the tenure of office of local council ones and local council two in the country. This follows the expiration of the term of office of these two bodies of governance on the 10th July this year. And to help us unpack the intricacies that comes with such a decision is a very powerful panel of eminent persons, honorable member of parliament, a researcher, and policy analyst. Ladies and gentlemen, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On my immediate right is Mr. Chemonges Timothy, who is a programs and policy analyst at SEPA. How is SEPA?
Thank you so much. SEPA is well. We are doing the day-to-day work to serve the nation, but also ensuring that the question of decision making as a country must be based on evidence and conversations on different matters in the society are spearheaded.
Well done. I'm one of the fans of SEPA.
Thank you.
Proud of the work you're doing.
Thank you, Harris.
Great. Next is Madam Charity Ahimbisiwe, who is the Executive Director of Electoral Reform and Governance Institute. Charity, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Harris, and very good morning to all our viewers. Happy to meet the panelists here.
How is the institute and what do you do?
The institute is okay. What we do is track electoral democracy and governance across the eastern horn of Africa. And like I always say, we collaborate with our partners in Kenya, the Electoral Laws and Governance Institute in Kenya. We have partners in Ethiopia, partners in Somalia, South Sudan, and we hope to move into Tanzania for their next election. So what we do is track how is democracy, how is the feeling of democracy across those countries, especially with elections as a hallmark. So our eyes are always on the elections, what is happening. African Union, you can see coups up and down. Those things interest us. Why more coups? Why are people getting tired of elections? How can we make them better across the continent? So that's us at Electoral Laws.
Sure, we'll be looking forward to gleaning on your cup of wisdom when it comes to electoral laws in this country, because looks we haven't got our elections right recently. And last but by no means the least is Honorable Alpel Moses. Honorable Moses is a member of parliament for Chekwi County. You're most welcome, Honorable.
Thank you, Aris.
Yes.
Good morning, viewers. It's a pleasure being here again.
Yes.
This morning.
Yes.
I look forward to fruitful interaction with my fellow panelists this morning.
Great. How are the great people of Chekwi County?
Yeah, they're fine. There is some relative calm so far, given the fluid security situation that persisted from March up to mid-June. But now there's some relative calm, so we're getting where we want to be slowly.
Yeah, and let's dive direct into the conversation, and we'll start with you. This week you took a decision to approve a statutory instrument presented by Cabinet to extend the term of office of local council ones and local council twos by 6 months. Is this a legal decision?
Yeah, well, as the arm of government that is mandated to do legislation, I think it was the right thing to do, because the laws that we make for this country are for the interests of people of this country. Are the laws that we make sure that they come into place to avoid disorder in the management of this country. And at this time, it was the most practicable thing to do, given that we wouldn't definitely wait to carry out elections as to where. But it is something that is provided for in the law, and definitely that had to be done. I think it was the most appropriate thing to do in these circumstances. I know there could have been other things which we can discuss later, but as far as what Parliament did, it was the most appropriate thing, and That's why it passed without a lot of ado. There might have been some bit of debate, but in my own judgment, it was the usual debate, because even the issues that were raised were about what could have occasioned such a situation. But we had a situation at hand which we had to handle, and that was the best way we could handle it. Yeah.
Oh, Charity, let me come to you. Was this a legal decision? The Honorable intends to convince us that this was legal, but there's a divided opinion on this.
Now, of course, the truth of the matter is that Parliament in Article 79 is required to legislate for good governance, for democracy, for peace, and for development.
True.
But if you see this legislation, was it really for democracy? It wasn't. Why do we have local councils? And why do we have Article 180 and 181 of the Constitution? Because these are constitutional clauses. And we just saw a minister coming up with an instrument, 63, days after the term had expired. The law does not act retrospective.
Exactly.
The law is progressive. If you study the principle of legality, then you know that the law is
progressive.
So what Parliament did, first and foremost, already tinkers with the principle of legality. They came to reverse a thing which had already expired. And yet it had been known that on July 10th, the local councils are expiring. Electoral Commission gave them a notice 2 months prior to the expiry. So if you're asking me, did they do well in terms of democracy? No. Now, why do we have local council elections? Local council elections espouse the right of a citizen to vote. They lie on Article 59, Article 38 of the Constitution. Remember, the Constitution is read as a whole. And Article 1 of the Constitution, power belongs to the people. And the spirit of the Constitution, we, the people of Uganda, have come up with this Constitution and decided that from today forward, we shall determine the matters concerning us democratically. So how do citizens then exercise their democratic right? It is through elections. And Article 181 is telling you, a clause 4, that after 5 years, local councils will expire and the citizens will elect. So the same way citizens elect, they also, the Constitution provides actually that they can get back this member of parliament that they have elected, a local council, LC1. So I had the arguments on the floor of parliament, one being voters are fatigued, and so every time there are so many elections, voters tend not to want to vote. And it's true, we've seen voter turnout going down. But is voter turnout going down because of the number of elections? I disagree. It is not because of the number of elections. Voter turnout is going down because of lack of transparency, because of violence, and lack of accountability in electoral processes. Every time there are deficits in the way the process is handled, then there is a correlation with the turnout. So you cannot use the argument of there are too many elections for the citizens to decide. What Parliament did was to usurp the rights of citizens. It was to violate that right to vote their local leader. Article 180 states that local councils will exercise executive and legislative powers. It is to that effect. And it is also to the effect that they are the lowest political representation of the people. So when you come and you just say, for us, we don't have money, we've decided this can be one of those things that we really throw off the shoulder. It's like saying the citizens do not matter. The issues to participate as provided for in Article 38, Article 1, Article 79, which requires them to legislate for democracy. Democracy was not just written in that thing for nothing. They could have left it as good, for peace and development without democracy. Your national objectives talk about democracy. When we talk democracy, can we respect democratic principles? Can we respect the rights of citizens? Because what they did now is to take away the right of the citizen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you ask me, is it legal? Well, one, the instrument came days after.
Yeah.
And the law doesn't work.
After the expiration, you mean?
After the term had expired,
Yeah.
and the law doesn't work.
Retrospective.
Yes. The only law that works retrospective is the Expropriated Properties Act of Indians, because the law was trying to make good what had happened during the time of Amin when he expelled the Asians. But when it comes to these other legal matters, the instrument should have come ahead. And then there should have been a consultative process with the voter, which did not happen. A minister usurped all the powers of the 42 million Ugandans who are going to exercise their right in 70,000 villages across Uganda. And he said, postponed for 180 days.
Quite a number of constitutional, legal, and political principles that you really bring to the surface, and I want to thank you. I see Honorable Alpel is itching to respond, but as you prepare your responses, let me bring in my brother Timothy on the same question.
So thank you. I think that I agree with what Charity is saying. Article 83 or thereabout speaks on the question of retrospective legislation. And it clearly says that while Parliament is given the mandate to legislate, that shall not be done in a retrospective manner. It's so very clear.
Yeah.
But I think it is, but definitely looking at this, the problem that we have currently, there has to be a solution to it anyway, because we have a problem at hand.
Yes.
And Parliament is the institution that should do that. But I think for me, it is the manner in which the executive and partly the legislature handle matters in the country. It is elections of local council. It's not something that happens just at once. It's a process. These are planned activities which requires resources, which requires programming and many other aspects. I know that even last year when they were just submitting the budget framework paper, there had been a proposal of close to 56 billion that had been proposed to be included in the budget framework paper. None of that was included, including the whole budgeting process. So that was not included, despite the Electoral Commission proposing that. And so you notice that the priorities that our leaders, the priorities that the government and those that are charged with this mandate handle public matters. It is in a way that it's a laissez-faire way of handling things. But more importantly, I think that if you look at Parliament has exposed itself to the impunity or to some sort of carelessness of the executive. We've seen many times Parliament being bombarded with things which ideally would have been done properly. And so it's a last-minute rush hour. And so Parliament has to find a solution, has to find a way of addressing these things.
Timothy, are you saying that in this case, Parliament is being used by Cabinet as a broom to clean the mess?
No, you see, what I'm saying is that this is not the first instance where Parliament has to clean up a mess that has happened. That has happened so many times. And there seems not to be a very clear voice and a very clear position that as legislature, we shall not allow to be part of the mess or irregularities or some sort of carelessness in how we handle matters. But also that means that, you know, other than legislation, there are other roles that Parliament is charged with. It includes oversight. And so that is within their purview. And so I think that even as we discuss this, the bigger picture is in how do we handle public issues? How do we handle citizenry's concerns? And that goes across, it could go across socio-economic and all the other. So it means that if we know that we have elections coming and we cannot even go ahead to even budget for them, consider, notwithstanding the likelihood of them posing a challenge within the operations of the country, and we don't budget on them, that exposes the executive, including the legislature, on how we handle the matters. And so for me, this was it clearly it was a breach of the laws, and but given the fact that there's a problem, and we definitely have to find a solution, then what was done was right. But I think even as you say that, it means that there's a sense in which laws, in which operations, in which how things are done within the government speaks to how we look at things and our priorities as a country.
Fair enough. Thank you, Timothy. Honorable Appel, hearing from Charity and Timothy, you hear nothing but indictment on the cabinet and parliament as well, that your decision amounts to nothing but disrespect of the sovereignty of the people of Ugandans. That you have usurped the powers of Ugandans to choose who is supposed to exercise power on their behalf. It's a big indictment, Honorable.
Yeah, well, actually, what Charity and Chimonges are saying, they're just actually rallying behind what Parliament had raised, and actually, those are the real issues that we raised with the executive. First, the executive really has faltered in this circumstance, and if you remember, before yesterday's sitting, Parliament had gone on a recess, or had been adjourned the same day. Because if you really followed the debate that time, these were the very issues that we raised in Parliament, of course, indicting the executive. Surely, you know, I think this is an absolute case of incompetence by someone who is charged with that particular responsibility.
By the executive.
Yes. And if you really follow to the dot, you could invoke one of the articles of the Constitution. And actually, the minister should have even been censured. Actually, he would qualify to be censured because he has failed to live up to. In fact, one of the things is competences. Competence is the ability to deliver what is expected of you, and which he hasn't. This one is not even subjective. It is so objective. You have either delivered or not. Because what was the delivery? By the 10th, this should have been in place.
I mean,
but what I'm trying to... Yes,
sorry to interrupt. I'm happy hearing this from you. But we didn't hear motion from any of the members talking about censure, because I think this is a classical case of competence. I agree with you.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying if you follow the debate before the Parliament had actually been adjourned, signed indefinitely until just yesterday when we were called, because those were the emotions that actually came up during the debate. Every parliamentarian after parliamentarian was raising these very issues that you have done. They're absolutely right. There's no question about it. And it is just right that we really have to check the executive and make sure they do what is expected of them. So what I'm saying is those mistakes were done, but someone definitely has to clean the mess.
Yeah.
Okay? And really what Parliament did was really right. Legally, yes, we had to issue a statutory instrument,
illegal,
which is something, instead of amending the Local Government Act, it is some piece of legislation you can delegate to a minister, and it definitely provides for alteration or even enforcing certain aspects of an act of Parliament subsequently. So it is within the legal provisions, really. So you can't completely trash it out. The mistakes were done, that one I want to do. But I think it is also not right to indict Parliament. Because we make laws, the executive is the one charged with the execution or implementing the laws and the policies that have been approved by the sitting government. And that was squarely where they faltered. If Parliament had done nothing completely, I think you would have also bandwagoned us eventually. But I think we played our part, and ours is to make laws and create sanity in this country. You can imagine the situation we would have been if nothing had completely been approved. If, for example, even the 2 weeks had to be extended, if we had to push for provision of 2 weeks, once this is published and tabled to Parliament, you have another 2 weeks to either alter it or even actually trash it altogether. But I think in the interest of this country and the running of this country, it was just right to do that. And I think Parliament did its part.
Perform an illegality.
No, there's no. It is. There were mistakes done, but what Parliament passed is provided to provide for issuing that
state. Charity argues, and I tend to agree with her, that the decision abuses the principle of legality. It should not, because.
By the way, when you issue a statutory instrument, it actually enables an existing law to be enforced subsequently. So it is like it's like to carry on what is provided in the law, but to be implemented subsequently. That's actually what our instrument works. That's why, for example, you can pass a law, an act, and then later, through a statutory instrument, you can issue guidelines to operationalize that law. All right, and we are talking about the operational aspects of electoral processes. Yeah.
Charity, looking at the architecture of our governance system and the power dynamics, is this a case which shows that it is always better to have a different political party with a higher number of members of parliament than the one which is in government? In other words, if the NRM did not have the majority members of parliament, would they have acted with laxity, with no care at all, if they knew that there is a strong opposition in parliament?
I actually don't think they would have acted with laxity, but we have reached a moment in our democracy where we seem to want to trivialize key issues. Because, more than 5 years ago, government came and said they didn't have funds to conduct secret ballot. And so they opted that LC1 elections will be by lining up, because it is cheaper, it is transparent, everybody knows the results as they're happening at the point. So this powerful NRM, actually this is one of their babies. Local councils are one of the babies, are one of the 10-point programs that the NRM came with, flagging at Ugandans that for us, if you're going to judge us and how we have performed, to be partly local councils, how are they operating? I mean, democracy, the citizens, how do they feel? And how do they pronounce themselves on these governance issues every time, after 5 years for the different sets of governance? And now we see the very government coming back and seeming to say, no, there is a time when the citizens should not actually pronounce themselves. So I think if there was a strong opposition like you propose, what should have happened is during the time when Electoral Commission gave notice for these elections, they would have pushed for the elections to happen, even with a smaller budget. If the 58 billion was too much and they wanted Electoral Commission to justify if lining up can amount to 58 billion, then they could cut the cloth and say, let's go with 16 billion. Let's go with 11 billion. They count how much they think they will spend on 70,000 villages. Because remember, there are 70,000. And this election is almost bigger than your national election. When I saw the Attorney General suggesting that, no, we should hold this election same time with presidential elections, I thought he doesn't actually understand what elections are all about. Because presidential elections and parliamentary elections in themselves are already a burden to the society to understand civic education. We keep talking about civic education, that the population is not civically elite on the issues to do with the elections. Now you get and add on LC1 elections in an already big election, which is presidential and parliamentary. We already have a lot of violence, a lot of mismatches of pictures on the ballot papers, style of one, printing issues. How do you expect the Electoral Commission to manage those two huge elections on one day? The agreement with which I would go with them is what the proposers of reform have always said. We can have the LC3, the mayor elections, those ones, we can have them on the same day, not 2 weeks after the presidential elections. Those ones, because they're a smaller facet of people, LC5, LC3, it's okay. But you cannot combine the national election of presidential, LC3, mayor, members of parliament, and you add on local council one. It just can't work. Now, you can also not say, an honorable has raised and said, look, we had no choice but just to do this. LC1s, what is their mandate? What do they do in villages? Let's think about it. They have land matters. They have children matters. You know, the first court for all the issues to do with family and children end up with LC1. They sit on security councils and help to move security matters at the lowest level. Then they also handle the question of easements and land transactions and where roads can pass, road access and easements. Those are things they sit down with.
You'd say they are the first points of contact with government.
Yes, they're the first government, and they handle these things on a daily basis.
Yes.
So when you say you don't have them, then it is equal to saying you have the communities going in a mayhem. Anybody can decide, me, this road will not exist. I have built my wall up to here. Do what you want. I mean, there is no LC1. Where is it going to come from? Where is your mandate? Where is it coming from? And when they extend, by just a virtue of extending, the minister usurping the power of the citizens, the citizen is asking, who is he accountable to at this point? He's accountable to the minister. Is it now? Because he's now no longer accountable to the citizen. The citizen, he only becomes accountable to the citizen when they vote him. But you're giving him an extension. The second issue therein are the dead people. And you had the members of parliament themselves, they raised it. And they said there are many local government LC1s who might be dead. You've not done an audit to know that in the 70,000 villages, maybe 20,000 are dead, maybe 5,000 are dead, maybe 1,000 are dead. You don't know. But you're just giving a blanket even to dead people. Would that be legal? Those are the things that needed to have been thought. Even the opposition themselves in parliament, I think maybe they got overwhelmed. Maybe they sat down like the MP is here telling us, the honorable is telling us that, look, the executive had already overwhelmed us. And so we had a problem at hand and we didn't know what next. If we just agree for the problem to stay, then what? But yes, this might have been done as it has been done. The rights of the citizens have been violated. And the power of the citizen to decide has been usurped. And I think that both Parliament and the executive should remember that the rights of the citizen is the life of the 1995 Constitution.
Thank you so much. Timothy, Charity has highlighted the vital role of the LC1s and LC2s in the day-to-day life of the millions of Ugandans, really, land transactions. Yeah. I mean, I don't intend to repeat what she has eloquently put. Yet, on the other side, government knew that on the 10th of July, their tenure would expire. Parliament knew. Anyone who is in administration of this country knew, or reasonably ought to have known. The Electoral Commission actually presented a budget, 60 billion, for renewing the tenure so that we don't create a crisis. Yet the way the government has, approached this matter seems to suggest that the citizens, and I would agree with Charity, that are of secondary importance. In your opinion, you've been covering Parliament for quite some time. In your opinion, what are the roots of this animosity, this kind of lack of care attitude by government when it comes to these important matters?
So I think it is squarely into incompetence, but broadly it speaks to the nature of governance and how we are addressing the whole question of governance generally in our country. Because if you look at this specific instance, this is just a symptom of how we've handled our matters in society. It cuts across. Speak about the some of the economic decisions we take, some of the human rights decisions that we take, how we address the question of all the matters really. Like if you look at how we've addressed the question of management of the society, the well-being of the citizenry, it clearly shows that there is a governance gap, and governance also that goes to the extent of leadership, and I think also partly because of the laxity. There is lack of very clear punitive actions to be taken on individuals or institutions that failed to act or failed to do certain things. And I think for me, that's why I still will come back to Parliament. So, we've moved from the perception of Parliament after legislating, so that our work is done. Hands off. Yeah. The rest take over from there. Once we've budgeted, that is it, someone else has to take over. So Parliament's role still cuts across. You've passed the law, so there has to be some sense of understanding. Okay, so we passed this law. How is it going? And that goes to the extent of oversight. And we pass laws because also some of those laws requires resources. Their councils or institutions need to be set up to ensure that they get to operate. You've passed the budget, definitely. You've seen, for example, how we've handled the Auditor General's report, for example. Quite very serious issues raised in the Auditor General's report. The manner in which it is handled, laissez-faire. Parliament goes ahead to still disburse or appropriate money to the same institutions, while there are queries here, and so it's a cycle
of tolerating bad governance,
so
bad practices.
And so I think that, but we're looking at it from the Parliament's perspective, really. I know also they find themselves in a hard place, given the fact that you have a problem at hand. The citizenry, there are certain decisions which have to be taken. The role these individuals play, the LCs, are quite critical, both in the governance. So there has to be a solution. How we address these solutions, depending on. So there is already a breach that has been done. There is the disrespect of the Constitution, and clearly that I think is not in dispute. So how do we go forward? And this may not be even the last time that we are seeing Parliament being stampeded, but also partly promoting and trying to promote impunity. And I think Parliament largely bears that blame. They have become so flexible, and they have accommodated some sort of incompetence by the executive, and the executive know that eventually we shall go there and talk over this. You've mentioned the thing of the tyranny of numbers. Whether it would be different if so that's the sort of mentality.
Assuming NUP had a majority, would NRM have let the term expire?
Of course, NUP will definitely, looking at it at a political level, they would want to use it to their advantage. They would even impeach.
Objectively thinking, assuming NUP had the country in the best interest, what would have been the best, action or step taken by Parliament in the wake of what the executive has done?
I think in a very sensible.
Both before the expiration of the term of office, because Parliament ought to have known that within 2 months, 3 months before the expiration, that the tenure of the local council 1s and 2s is going to expire. So other than now acting retrospectively, they could have acted progressively to act before, the term of office expires.
And I think that's the desirable, that we definitely follow the protocols, we follow the procedure, but also the dictates of the Constitution, which is the desirable.
Why are you slow to condemn the non-majority in Parliament?
Why I'm slow to that is that my ideology is that the number of times I've actually seen the ruling party pulling the card of the numbers, they are countable times. The times when it has to be a do or die, even in the whole term, they are quite they are quite, you can count them. The rest of the times, it really, I think, if you look at it objectively, it's usually on how the members debate. So, for example, this one, there was no, I didn't see the perceptional tyranny of numbers in the political parties. But definitely, in the long run, you see that there's some sort of understanding by the ruling party. And so for me, I think that even as we look at the question of tyranny of numbers, I think there are very countable times when that card has been pulled. Actually, they're accountable. These all other
I think psychologically it plays out because when a government is choosing to let something bad pass, they know that in parliament they won't be pushed hard. They know that it can't sleep, we are safe. I think it actually is always playing out. In all, when they are requesting for supplementary budgets for things that ought to have reasonably been foreseen and planned for, they know that their parliament will let it pass. So I don't think that the card is not at play. I think the majority, the fact that they enjoy the majority is actually always at play, Timothy.
That's partly true, and I agree. I just think that there are better ways in which Parliament should be able to address this question of competence.
Let me bring in Honorable Lepel.
But maybe before Honorable comes in, because Honorable is supposed to defend the Constitution.
Yes.
Article 79 actually tasks members of Parliament to defend the Constitution.
Exactly.
Apart from making the law, also defend it. And you knew that now this was one of those times when you have decided to trash the Constitution. How do the members of Parliament sleep with themselves? How are they feeling about fulfilling their mandate that is enshrined in Article 79?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to react to some of the submissions from my colleagues. Of course, one question that you pertinently asked was if, for example, the opposition was a majority. Of course, we really know that the opposition is rightfully there to check on the executive, excesses of the executive. And what we are saying is, if this happens, what can really come out of it? When Charity says that, we also fault Parliament because it should have also acted quite very fast. In fact, one of the rules in our debates, really, we don't debate in anticipation, because it would initially would have to think that maybe the executive is going to fail to do this. So we would wait for that time when they have actually failed, because we normally don't debate in anticipation. So you can only know someone has made a mistake when actually it has been exhaustively established, and that would be when the time of these elections have passed. But the arguments that have been given, I want to concur with Charity. They are not sustainable. This idea of saying that this election fatigue. No, that's not an argument for this particular type of case. Even the Attorney General talking about, we can lump all these elections. Of course, that's not practical. It's something that's not available. Those were just possible arguments that he could do. Just someone drowning, you try to cling on anything. That was the thing. But really, the inspection, monitoring, and coordination of local governments is the preserve of the Minister of Local Government.
Yeah.
And that's the ambit of the minister. Definitely, he had to do that. And the best still I want to emphasize is the best that would be done was that remedy. I also want to correct Mr. Chemonges. It is not the executive which overwhelmed us. I think the mistake that had been made by the executive is not overwhelm this country. Okay, not that we overwhelm. They can't overwhelm us.
All right.
We normally put them to check.
All right.
Thank you.
Honorable Alepel, you're going to hold it up there, and we shall take a very short commercial break. And when we return, we shall continue with the conversation. To our viewers, please do stay with us. Make sure that you give us a like and share. Leave a comment in the comment section so that we understand what you're thinking about the conversation at Civic Space TV. Thank you.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. You are still watching Focus on Parliament here at Civic Space TV. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Civic Space TV. In studios, I have Mr. Timothy Chemonges, Madam Charity Imsibe, and Honorable Alpel Moses, and the discussion rotates around the expiration of the term of office and the decision by Parliament to extend the tenure by 6 months. Is this legal? Why did the executive allow this situation to happen? Before we took a break, Honorable Alpel, you are still making your point. I would like you to conclude your submission and then we move on to the next episode.
Yeah, thank you, Aris. I just wanted to say that after extending that period, we made sure as a parliament to hold the minister or the executive accountable. We also requested them that just before or during this period that has been extended, they should come with an action plan that must be tabled in Parliament. And this action should explicitly show the resources that have been mobilized, the cost, the institutions, the meetings that they have held to make sure that this action would be implemented, or action plan will be implemented. So there is already that can still hold them accountable. And this will be done not even actually 2 months into this period of extension. Because immediately we resume, I'm sure we shall still sustain that.
But Honorable Alpel, part of the reason that members of the public are not happy with Parliament itself is that why this conversation did not take 3 or 4 months ago? Why did the Parliament allow the term of office to expire before they could take this action? I mean, we saw the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament adjourning the plenary sine in protest. But why didn't she protest 3 months ago? I mean, this is not an emergency. It's something we could reasonably foresee as a country. And we had been warned prior by Electoral Commission. Everyone was talking about it. The country was in the mood of electing new leaders. Why didn't Parliament take a decision then?
Yeah, if you have actually followed the proceedings of Parliament, maybe I need to inform you that sometime earlier on, even the term of women councils had expired.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was an issue that was raised. An extension was also occasioned. But what I want to tell you is, initially I told you that the Committee on Public Service and Local Government had actually raised this issue. They had raised a red flag. And like I told you again, that there are certain, the rules of our debate are not really, should not be done in anticipation. And we were definitely waiting for these people to put this into place, because the Committee of Public Service and Local Government had actually highlighted this issue, because there was the other lesson of the Women Council, and these issues had been raised. And even towards the run into the expiry of the term, the very issues, sentiments were echoed by some members of Parliament. And I think if I can remember vividly, I think the shadow minister for local government addressed that issue in Parliament. So what I'm saying is, using our oversight role, there were indications that we might run into this, and we had raised the red flag. But of course, we kept getting assurance from the executive that this would be done. Unfortunately, it didn't come to pass. But I also want to take this opportunity to say that some of these things are happening because there's a lot of civic incompetence in this country. These drums would have come or been sounded as early as possible from the lower circles, from the citizens of this country. Like just like we know, there's a lot of civic incompetence, and I think much as there's an institution mandated to play this role, I think I want to take this opportunity also to call on the civil society to also
help
this country in really creating civic competence in this country, because that's where most of these problems are done. You'll even find that actually out of these 70,000 villages, most of those, maybe even one or two, know the roles of the LC1. Apart from maybe signing being a signatory to the tenancy agreement, the land sale agreement, and possibly solving some of these domestic cases. But there are so many roles they play, and I think they are not even actually carrying out their mandate effectively. A case in point is, I don't know whether most of these LC1s actually make reports to the villages on what has taken place. I think periodically should be, I think, half yearly or something like that. Quarterly.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that we think we need to, so that every citizen, we don't leave this to the preserve of Parliament or maybe the executive, so that an average Ugandan knows what actually should be taking place in this. Then lastly, I just wanted to mention something about the OAG reports, where even when some accounting officers have been indicted, we still, allocate or appropriate resources to them. What happens is, at the end tail of the discussion of Auditor General's reports, we have what we call Treasury Memorandum, where we recommend something to be, we make recommendations for accounting officers or for the institutions themselves. And normally those recommendations, there are some actions that should be taken against whoever has maybe misappropriated or done any wrong in that. So much as we continue appropriating the resources, we appropriate the resources to the institution, not to that particular maybe accounting officer. So there's still that opportunity to indict those who have.
Honorable, I hear you to the extent that there is value in any democracy for civic competence from the citizenry. But when you call upon the citizenry to put pressure, for example, to get cabinet or the executive organize elections, as a member of parliament, are you saying that the parliament has now become too weak to mount its own sufficient pressure to pressurize the governments to do what is right?
I think I may need to be quite clear on this. I was commenting generally about the civic competence,
not in relation with these.
And these are some of the things that breed such. If a minister knows when he goes back to Bushenyi, nobody can ask him about such a thing. If a minister knows, even if he goes to Gulu, nobody can raise such an issue. But you can imagine if, for example, he goes for a gathering and someone raises that issue.
Yes.
Who is actually
I wanted you to contextualize that.
Yes.
Very
So,
well.
so that's how it should come. Really.
You could.
Yeah,
yes.
but otherwise, I think some of these events or occurrences become actually helpers in the posterity. I think this will also now inform our subsequent oversight roles as Parliament, that we may not have to wait until these mistakes have been made, especially where there is a window or an opportunity to prevent, other than later cure them. But I think
fair enough. Let me come to you, Charity, about something related to what Honorable said. I mean, this country is not short of crises, from the budget, it has own issues, the State House being allocated a lot, then supplementary budgets being abused, now the crisis around the elections which we are discussing. But then, now and again, they slip, they pass. This, in my view, and I've heard many other Ugandans say, that this is a glaring case of abuse of the Constitution. And yet we don't have strong voices, we don't have strong actions from the public condemning such an act of misgovernance. What does that say about our democracy and where we are in our quest for better rule?
So we have been saying as democracy actors in Uganda for, I think, the past 20 years, that the problem we face is we take 10 steps forward and then we take 5 steps backwards. So there was a time when government recognized the role of civil society and worked very well with civil society. We still exist in the National Development Plan 3. And that role is underscored there. But every time civil society raises a red flag, with government officials puts them to account, what they do is turn the guns against the individual that is raising the red flag. But this is being done for the spirit of checks and balances. Democracy is about checks, balance, and it's about tolerance. What you are seeing even being bred in political parties right now is intolerance. Look at what is happening at FDC. See what is happening in NUP. See what's happening with NRM. NRM doesn't want to speak about its own bones, but they also have. They have their own skeletons. They come and say, for us in this place, we have decided this one is the one standing. It happened in Okabe's constituency. They had another person who wanted to come as an NRM candidate. They said, no, for us, our candidate is this one. Okay? And then the young man won them. And when he won, said, no, NRM should have actually listened more. Maybe we needed to. So they also have issues. It's not like it's only these other political parties that are right now tainted. So the question of civic, the voices of citizens, the voices of citizens have been threatened with military. Every time a voice of a citizen comes out, then the military is going to follow you. If not, the military is going to be an institution. Look at civil society right now. It is dogged by all institutions. URA saying you pay this. Then URSB is saying now we are going to scrape you off. You are a charity organization, yes, but you're non-profitable. Now you need to pay this amount of money. You need to file returns. After that, Financial Intelligence Authority is after you, even for trumped-up cases. They create all sorts of stories about you because you raised human rights issues. Who wants to work in such an environment? So that is what has happened to the citizens. And many of them have withdrawn, not because they don't want to participate, and not because these constitutional clauses do not exist. And that's why I was asking the MP here, that honorable, do you ever defend this constitution? Is there a point when you say, this time for us as members of parliament, we've decided we're defending this constitution based on what we read it as? Defending that constitution is to defend the citizens of this country. It is to defend civil rights actors. It is to defend civil society organizations that are being harassed for no reason. Trumped up cases, stories about them. Then you have an exhibition attacking people using robots and boots. Was that useful? Did it help civil society go forward in any way? So I think the bigger issue for us is not to always find ways of rubbing our dirt under the carpet, but is to face fair and square our governance issues. We have a lapse in governance. And the lapse in governance is coming from the fact that people are not being nurtured. People don't understand what this is all about. And that is why somebody would ask, why the hula baloo about LC1 elections? That's why I labored to explain these LC1 elections. First and foremost, if you talk about a national voters register, it includes 70,000 villages. Every village has how many people? Remember that, they're in thousands. And each village has to go and confirm that those people are there on that register before an election is conducted. So an election just doesn't fall out of the sky. There's a whole process to before. And that is why that money is being reflected the way it's being reflected by Electoral Commission. Yes, it can be cut down, I think, based on a proper analysis on what is required for each village to conduct a credible process. But you said you couldn't do a secret ballot. You said you want us to line up. What the heck with lining up? You just need to put for us electoral officials who you're going to facilitate. Then you're going to make sure that we have ballots that are printed, because most of that cost, I'm sure, is going into printing of ballots. That is not done by Uganda printers here. Why? Because people will go and steal the ballots. They will change your picture. They will put another person's picture, and then the process becomes haywire. They are being printed from elsewhere. But if we had good printers here, probably we would say, okay, now for LC1 elections, we shall be printing them in Uganda. We have a good system. We can trust it, and we are credible people. But for lack of credible leaders, for lack of people who can stand their ground, people are just thinking about corruption on every stage. There is no system. The systems that are there are being abused. And when people raise issues to do with these systems, others don't want to listen. If we sat down as a country and agreed that yes, the citizens have raised some issues that we need to pay attention to, we would begin on a trajectory of democratic growth.
Charity, you do touch some of the real issues at the core of our struggles to become a democratic nation. And you paint a picture that, well, there's work to be done at the citizen level to raise awareness. I mean, you gave the example of what is happening in the FDC. Looks like every time elections happen in this country, there's a demon that overtakes all of us and we are all into arms. Timothy, why is this?
I think it's the political big man syndrome. What essentially would mean the lack of proper systems, but also we've seen a very deliberate strategy, at least from by the ruling party, to dominate the whole space. And given the fact that many of the other political parties do not have a very firm and a solid foundation, including NUP, including FDC, which has progressively lost the grip, and so they're easily fizzled out, and the level of compromise is quite high. And so I think as a country, you know, our democracy is in 2005 we embraced the multi-party democracy, and that essentially equally was a step towards affirming our position, but also our commitments towards providing a very democratic space. But you will definitely see that at the political level where we are heading to, there seems to be quite a level of uncertainty, and that will speak towards the nature in which we are looking at things. I think it's not the first time individuals in some of these political parties are being called out of receiving either resources or being compromised. I think it's at the point in time when probably things are now clear, because you'll definitely, if you try to look closely, there's a trace of some of these things for some time, and it's the same accusations on all these political parties, not DP, not FDC and the other political parties. And if you look at the ideology, if you look at the foundation, if you look at the thinking around the individuals in some of these political parties, you notice that there's quite a lot missing. And so at the glance of any compromise, whether by resources or positions or any other valuable sort of enticing, can easily fizzle out any of these individuals.
Does this vindicate some of the political science theories that it's always hard to organize it in poor societies, to organize politically?
I think
as some of these cases, for example, of malls selling out, brought about by some of our economic realities, you think?
No, I think it is it comes back to the question of the ideology, the foundation. I know the question of resources and the question of poverty, and probably the desire to enrich self is quite there, but I think it's on the foundation of the ideology. If we to say benchmark with some of the very, very progressive political parties, at least globally, We have ANC in South Africa, which is one of the oldest political parties, but also very strong. You'll see its journey even at the time of apartheid, when there was quite a lot of force from the protectorate then. Look at the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. So you notice, and those are very, very strong, and they are very good political parties that we've seen come, and they have tested the seasons amidst poverty, amidst the political tough terrains. You'll notice that it is the foundation, it is the commitment, but also it's the belief of some of these individuals towards achieving a specific objective of what they would want to achieve. If you see, for example, FDC, you can clearly see there's been a progressive degeneration in terms of what they stood. And so they've kept on dropping one by one. And that is actually not to spare NRM. The NRM is still at the individual basis. NRM other than, if you remove Mr. Museveni or the president from the equation, the NRM is so it clearly tells us of how, as a society, we look at the question of democracy, but where some of these institutions are founded.
All right. Yeah. Let me come back to Charity. The retired General Mugisha Muntu is a former president of the FDC and now the president of the ANT, Alliance for National Transformation. While commenting on what's happening in the FDC, says that part of the problem is societal, in a sense that most Ugandans don't pay attention to the politics. They have relegated politics to secondary status, yet politics determines everything. And he was talking about the challenge of political parties to raise financing from the citizens. So he says you have members of the public contributing for weddings, contributing for honeymoons, contributing for bridal showers, birthday parties, but they never care about fundraising or contributing to their respective political parties. And yet politics is at the core, is at the heart of everything that happens in a society. What do you make of such a comment?
And I think he's spot on. I think Mugisha Muntu has been saying a number of things that Ugandans need to now sit down and reflect on. One has said all the fights that are happening in political parties, get them out of the media, which I agree. I think that even if you're going to spare a marriage, you don't put the fight online. If you do, it's going to go down because it has millions of people coming on board, and everybody coming on board has their own opinion. And you don't know whether they wish for it to continue or not to continue. That also is a card for them to chew. And then he is saying for society to grow, the question of financing of political parties is critical. And it is true that political parties and organizations act, which should be defended by my friends here in Parliament. But they don't. The reason why I'm saying they don't is because the National Consultative Forum went to sleep. They've never called out to say what happened to the National Consultative Forum. This forum was supposed to have started a meeting already because their term of office started in 2021. This is 2023. We are 3 years into this term of office. The NCF should have already sat 2 meetings, which have never happened. Parliament has never asked, what's going on with the NCF? NCF is the body which is supposed to know how our political parties fundraising. What is happening with their association, with their political encounters? How is the party running, for example? How are they collecting money? Like he's saying, are they fundraising? Are they getting it from donors? Who is giving it to them? Is there accountability? What are the accountability mechanisms? Because the political parties and organizations act is very clear. It states and says every political party, when it receives money, it should state where the money has come from and what it's going to do. part of the accountability mechanisms. And Parliament is supposed to hear this from the reports that are coming from the NCF. But that is not happening. Again, you see that the oversight role which was given to them is somewhere there in the limbo as these people tear themselves for them. They're saying, okay, for us, Casta, we are a bit safe for now. But it's not true. They should be now calling for accountability through the political party and organizations act. And I think that is what Mugisha Muntu is alluding to. He's saying, look, as a society, you don't even know that you're relegating politics, which is the key factor driving everything else in society. He is telling us that. And so I'm thinking that one of the politicians we need to sit back and reflect on as we grow our democracy is Mugisha Muntu. He speaks for principles. He speaks for accountability. But he also speaks for balance and fairness. And he speaks for a political dispensation for people that can work for all. It's not for a few people. That is why he keeps talking about those structures. Although I have criticized him many times about the structures, when will they ever be built? The reason is sometimes when you're waiting for something for too long and you can't see it on the democratic spectrum, you begin to ask, is it actually happening? I think one of the challenges that political parties have had, one, they don't run databases. They can't manage those databases. Every time they try to put up databases, I don't even know if NRM has a database. I want to go there and ask them. The last time when they brought a voters register, it had holes all over. People were saying, God, we don't know this member, we don't know this one, across the villages when they were doing their party primaries. Now that tells you something about the data. Do they have clean bases? Can political parties be encouraged to have these databases? We know who is FDC from where, in which village, what do they do? Who is NUP, who is NRM, who is ANT? What do they do? And allow them to associate according to Article 29. And that is the defense now that Parliament should be doing. Parliament should be defending that article and saying, no, these people have a right to associate. But we see that every time they want to consult, they're stopped. Police comes in and says, you cannot hold this consultative meeting. So it then looks like what Mugisha Muntu is saying, you've relegated the politics.
To the secondary stages.
And yet it's going to influence us.
Thank you so much. Let me come to Alpel. We digressed a bit, and I allowed the digression because I thought that the issue of civic competence is crucial. It determines whether or not citizens are going to demand for accountabilities, whether citizens are going to demand for proper governance, for transparency. And in light of what's taking place around the elections in FDC, I thought that the digression was proper. And I would like to ask you, then we come back to conclude with our main subject. Given what's taking place, around the elections in the FDC, looking at the drama, of course, it's the ugly, whatever is taking place, as a man of the NRM, are you happy?
I just want to say that I want to look at it this way. If it was a mere sport, which was just a sport for entertainment, pleasure, I would be happy that my team, the other team is disorganized. But, we are talking about leading the people, leading a country.
Exactly.
It is something that the stakes are so high. It's about this country. It's about the people of this country. It's about the development of this country. So when you see such things happening, it also reflects actually on the citizenry, or on the political, can I say, situation in this country. In fact, what I know in this country is the social, political level of development is so low. These parties that we have, there are no specific principles that someone can say, when I'm saying I'm FDC, I stand for this. When I say I'm NUP, I stand for this. When I say I'm NRM, I stand for this. Okay, in societies which we can say are highly developed politically. I mean, in the US, you know what a Democrat stands for. You know what a Republican stands for. It is something that you will outlive everybody. Those principles will outlive. But we don't have those things. Actually, most of the politics that we have here is for convenience. Okay? Even me, if I was in Buganda at that time, you know, the wave was very evident that you just have to be somewhere to you know, to if you really the hand justifies the means, you decide then to want to go to parliament. But I don't think that
I like you so much.
Yeah, I think we have to be candid.
He's looking at reality.
You're very honest man.
I'm actually realist.
I thank you for that.
So it is that there are no principles. That's why you can see this disagreement. Sometimes I interact with colleagues from the opposition, and I really tell them that, you know, when I wasn't in parliament, we used to look at you because you used to argue that way. But when I see the level of confusion in your leadership, it really means that this was just something virtual. It was not real. So it is very disturbing. It means it can go any direction. Okay? You have had fights even in other parties. It's almost the same things. Talk about money, talk about suspicion, talk about insincerity. So it is something that we should look at as a country, that I think we may have to redefine politics. When you form a party, clearly state the principles. If someone doesn't believe in them, then you just know he's a tourist.
You know, colleagues, what really surprises me and what I fail to understand is we all acknowledge that most of our political parties are built on a shallow foundation. And yet there is a man, Mugisha Muntu, I mean, Charita said that everyone needs to listen to him. We need a conversation with him. He's been consistent on principles, on values. And we know that all institutions are built, strong institutions that are built to last, are built on foundations, strong foundations of values and immutable principles. Yet when Mugisha Muntu presents himself for office, he has a political party, it is as one of the list memberships. Why is it so?
I just wanted to, you know, I want to critique everybody.
Yeah.
When we get into a marriage,
Yeah.
when you get at the deep end of the marriage, actually, in order to sustain that marriage, you withstand any type of wind that comes. Any wave that comes, you withstand for the sake of the marriage being there. Any person, I would imagine any person who has joined a party, there is a driving principle. And these cases of divorce and forming, splitting away is also a problem. I would have loved those people to stay together and know that this party is bigger than us and not we as individuals. I would have expected them to stay in there and make sure their house is clean. You know, when you create these splinter groups, you are just, it means you can't tolerate. I would imagine you should tolerate yourself. You should tolerate yourself because there's a principle that should be guiding you. So I criticize negative people who actually get out and form another party. If you had the same principles in the beginning, why can't you sustain? Why don't those principles keep you together? There are some human weaknesses which you can understand. Just like I talked about a marriage. You can still keep.
Yeah. My very quick and last question on this topic. Some have argued that in the case that the NRM loses incumbency, or that Mr. Museveni is no longer the chairperson, then the NRM will also implode almost the same way like the FDC has done. Do you agree?
You see, that's based on some assumptions. I want to tell you. The assumption is the only holding factor is Museveni. Supposing his holding has also created, has coalesced other people, they will still remain together. That's also based on some assumption. Supposing his holding that NRM together has created a team within NRM which can actually hold it further, then to me it can be sustained. So it depends on the assumption that you have. Everybody thinks, many people think so, but I would also think the other way around. Supposing there are some people who have certain principles and feel that no, they are comfortable in the way where they are, and they can still stay there, it can be sustained.
Thank you. Mr. Chemonges, Timothy, given what's taking place in the FDC, I mean, Honorable Lepel has said that it's attributed to the low levels of social political awareness in the country, that we should be worried. No, everyone should be concerned about what's happening in the party. What do you think needs to be done?
I think as the most practical solution, I really look at it is all factions seems to be pulling from both sides, and all are determined to ensure that they take the day. We've seen all the youth wing, and also we have the Katonga.
Today they were fighting sticks. It was
so
violent.
it's violent.
Yeah. The other time
said
we
they
saw,
even have Katonga.
And then there's Katonga wing.
Oh,
It's
there's
really
a Katonga
violent.
wing.
So it's really messy. And I see the party further dividing. There will be another faction going and that kind of thing. I think the FDC is at a point of reflecting and trying to see, okay, so what are we? Because at the end of the day, the party is going to disaggregate further. There are quite a number of factions. You see the youth trying to also to pull out. You'll have the ideologues of the party trying to. So it's quite a messy situation. But I think it's at the point the party has to come back and forge a way forward.
All right,
can you just give me a minute?
Yes.
I wanted just to assure Charity that we are there to defend the Constitution, and I want to give two classic cases.
And call political parties, ask about the national.
Yeah, and I want to give you only two classic cases.
Yeah.
One, when there was a proposal to scrap bail, we really stood our ground, and the thing at least fell flat. And then the other one was on every other time there's a problem, we condemn discouraging and even actually dispersing this consultative meetings. We normally condemn this in the floors of Parliament every other time.
All
right,
ladies and gentlemen, our time is fast spent, but I'll give each one of you 30 minutes to give our viewers your last message.
So for me, first of all, I think is to thank the viewers and to appreciate for their time. But more importantly, is to say that we've reached at a point in our democracy where the citizenry have to be involved in the governance and decision-making of this country. And so you have a role, there is a contribution that you can make at whatever level, and you have to be involved in the decision-making of the country, and you must take interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Charity.
My parting shot is that the Honorable Raphael Majezi should apologize to all the citizens of this country for having usurped their powers and denied them the chance to choose their LC1 representatives on time, because LC1s are key political entities. They're provided for constitutionally, and we should see the executive and legislature come out to defend these entities, provide for the elections, cause the elections to happen, have the accountability done. The Women Council should also be held, and let the country get back on a trajectory of good governance.
Thank you. Honorable Palmas.
Yeah, thank you. What I want to assure the country does as your representatives and the Parliament of Uganda, much as we have extended this period for LC1s and LC2s, we are going to ensure that the government brings forward the milestones that it will put in place to ensure that these elections are put in place, the action, the plan, and when the timelines for this, and the people responsible, so that we make sure that this is actually, it comes to pass. So just be sure that we shall hold the executive accountable to that.
Thank you very much. And from me, Honorable Moses, I want to thank you sincerely for always standing up for the show. It's not easy to get hold of your colleagues. Most of them are not, they are not bold enough to come and engage with the citizens. So it's really grateful to always have you.
My
And
pleasure.
to the rest of the panel, thank you very much for your enriching conversation. I've enjoyed, I've learned a lot. Thank you so much. Charles, it's been a pleasure meeting you.
A pleasure
I
meeting you
always
too,
meet
Harrison.
Chemonges. I hope to have you again. It's been really, really nice conversation. And I hope to our viewers that you have enjoyed the conversation as much as I have. It is our inspiration to always inspire and motivate you and get you engaged. Please do leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think. From me and the crew, it's a bye-bye. Nice weekend. Please take good care of yourselves. Don't drink and drive.